Welcome to the first video in chapter 4. Now this video is a little bit different than all the videos we've done thus far. Now I'm going to be frank with you, this video is going to be a little bit different than all the videos we've done before. What we're going to do here is we're going to talk about a small blurb at the beginning of the chapter, and it refers to the difference between the private sector and the public sector. And I think until grade 10, most of you have probably come across this somewhere, but I want to discuss this in a little bit more detail because it's a very important difference that we need to distinguish between before we get any further in the lesson. Now, on one side, we have the private sector. Now, what is a private sector? The textbook defines this as those businesses and enterprises which are controlled by private individuals, and really, they're driven by profit maximization. You probably know a whole bunch of these. Here are a couple of ones on the slide here that you're familiar with: Microsoft, Verizon, Google, a whole bunch here. Now, what you need to really think about is these firms, although they're primarily concerned with profit maximization, unfortunately, in today's market, that's not all they're concerned about. If they're publicly listed firms, they're also concerned about their stock price, and oftentimes their stock price is even more important than profit maximization. So generally speaking, profit maximization is the driving force. But because shareholders exist and because they want to make sure that their investments grow, oftentimes firms take actions in the market, or firms engage in behavior that is not necessarily profit maximizing, but rather it's done with the intention of increasing their stock price. Now, at this point, it seems a little bit vague, but so what am I talking about? So let's talk about a specific issue. So there are many. For instance, a given firm may in fact decide to donate a whole bunch of money to a particular event or a particular group or to a particular function. For instance, we have a school festival every year. Microsoft may come in one day and say, hey, we want to invest in the school festival. So they spend, let's say, $10,000 investing in the school festival. Now, why would they do that? There is no profit motive there. They're not increasing their profit by donating $10,000 so that we can have a better school festival. What's happening? They're actually creating public goodwill. They want to give the impression that they're a friendly company, that they're a good company, that they're a trustable company. And then people who buy their stocks or people who invest in the market have a positive outlook towards Microsoft. And this is one of the key drivers of today's private firms. And this means private firms that have stocks listed for trade on the stock exchange. This behavior is very different from private firms who do not have their stocks listed for exchange on the stock exchange. Consider this example. I'm a small business and I'm going to invest $10,000 in the school festival. What's my gain from doing so? I don't have any shareholders. Nobody can buy equity in my firm. Nobody's stock prices are going to increase. So why would I do it? I would do it with the explicit purpose of creating goodwill in hopes that people in that area would consume my services and that total consumption would be in excess of $10,000. So you'll often see some small private firms that don't have listed shares on the market, they'll donate some money to a particular event. But at that event, they will give away free goods, or they'll in fact sell products, or they'll entice you to come to whatever shop or wherever they're selling their goods. And that is done with the explicit purpose of increasing profit. So you've got two different types of private firms. You've got those who have stocks listed for exchange in stock markets around the world, and then you've got private firms without stocks listed for exchange. Those who do not have stocks listed for exchange in stock markets, they are primarily concerned with profit maximization. That is an undeniable truth. Those, however, that have stocks listed for trade on stock exchanges, their primary concern may in fact not be profit maximization. It may very well be, but it may not be. They may be more concerned about increasing their share price over a given quarter or over a given term. Now, what do we have on the other hand? Well, on the other hand, we've got the public sector. Now, the textbook defines the public sector as businesses which are controlled and run by the government. Okay, so what does this include? Oftentimes, this includes public education, the police force, the army, the navy, the healthcare services, all these types of goods and services which are provided to protect or serve the needs of the public. Now, oftentimes, the public sector because it is not concerned about profitability, makes very, very wasteful choices. There are times when money is spent inappropriately. There are times when things are done without a clear financial motivation. So, in public sector systems, what are the failings? Well, in some places, for instance, the education sector suffers significantly because the government doesn't think there is any need to invest very heavily in this sector because they can't see the fruits of their investment for many, many years to come. In other areas, the roads are full of potholes. So what's happening here? In some traditional public sector areas like education, there have been movements or calls for the abandonment or the abolishment of public sector infrastructure, and rather, the private market should entirely deal with this issue. There are those who believe that's the best way. There are those who believe that's absolutely inappropriate. So that's what I'd like to discuss with all of you in class. We're going to talk about what's better, having an entirely socialist economy, one that's heavily dependent on the public sector to provide everything to everyone equally, or on the other hand, a private sector where the wealthy benefit and they're able to consume anything they want, and the poor are unfortunately excluded from many consumption decisions, or a mixed economy where there is some combination of the private sector and public sector working in unison. To be honest with you, this is a topic that has no right and no wrong answer. What I want you to really think about are things like, should education be privatized? Should healthcare be privatized? What areas and sectors should never be privatized? And what areas and what sectors that are private should become public? And that's the debate that we're going to have in class coming soon.